Hi guys, EG here. Welcome back to my channel. This week I thought I'd talk a little bit about pattern recognition and recognizing patterns in books, specifically looking at plot. Okay, so that does sound a little bit weird, like I'm trying to run my current idea through an AI machine or getting AI to produce a plot for me, but no, this is more about how to take your book from something that is recognizable and predictable to where your average reader knows exactly what's going to happen, to something that is an edge of your seat. We have no idea what's going to happen next. Let's keep reading sort of book. I've said before in other videos that everything you want to write before has been done. Aliens invading, it's been done more than once. Elves on a Quest, yep, that's been done too. Just because something's been done before doesn't mean you can't take it and make it something new and interesting. There's all sorts of new ideas that come out of old things. Okay, for a more generic example, take the blockbuster Marvel and DC comic books. They were turned into movies based on old original Greek myths, other historical events, that sort of thing. So you can take an idea and you can change it, make it less predictable and move it into something that's more unique. That being said, predictability is different than the use of tropes. Tropes are sort of like a shape that you use to contain certain parts of your novel, like an enemies to lover tropes, or the coming of age idea, or a quest to save the world. Those are all tropes. Those are things that are used over and over and over again to sort of shape a story and tell you what's going to happen without actually telling you what's happening. It's a guideline, a tool. Now, predictability is more like character X said this, and therefore character Y is going to hit character X, and all of a sudden, poof, that happens. That's more minute predictability, where a reader doesn't just like know the general shape of a story. It's not just, oh yeah, this is an adventure story, or this is a romance story where two people hate each other and then they start to love each other. This is okay, this scene will do this and this scene will do that, and so on and so forth. It becomes really boring to the readers. Okay, so here's the thing. I read a lot. And by a lot, I mean I can get through a couple hundred pages a day, and that's on top of my normal activities of writing and doing schoolwork. In a day where I don't have to do anything, I can read 1 to 2 full-length novels in a day. So I have seen a lot of different stories, and Amazon really did well when they came up with Kindle Unlimited. Given that I read so much, I tend to pick up the general patterns and things, and that means I've seen a lot of what's going to happen before. But when I can't figure something out, when I don't know what's going to happen, that's when I get really excited, when I actually start to think the story could be a step above the others. So here's some tips to get your predictability level down to where your reader doesn't actually know what's going to happen next. Tip 1, think of the natural next progression. Okay, that seems a little bit counterintuitive, and you might be right if that were the only thing you were going to do. So you're thinking about what would naturally happen next. If I were to take the situation and play it out in real life, what would happen? So that would be like character X is saying, how could you do such a thing to me? It's just awful. And character Y then says, because you were a terrible person and you were horrible to me. Okay, in most fights, people are going to defend themselves. They don't want to place the blame on themselves. They want to make sure that the other person understands that the other person sees the fault, where the fault lies according to character X or character Y. So then if you take that and you say, instead of, oh, you're a terrible person, you say, prove that I did something wrong. That adds a whole new level of emotional drama or interest or possible intrigue into the story, because now it's not just a typical I'm arguing with you over whatever. It's a, hold on, you don't think that I have proof. You think you're smarter than me, and why would you not get caught? I mean, did you actually do it? It becomes more of a mystery and a bit of intrigue, and you don't actually know what is going on inside the character's head, and you don't actually know what's going to happen next, which is great. So these tweaks are basically taking what you would normally see happen next and then adding a level of unpredictability. You're basically taking normal, you're basically taking reality and you're just tilting it a touch. Now these tricks can go too far. If you're saying, oh, why would you do such a thing? You're unlikely going to be saying, well, my camel died. Okay, that's a bit unusual, unless your story is set somewhere where there are camels. I mean, okay. So you can't take these too far, and then it becomes just weird. So you want to make sure you don't move into unbelievability. Okay, step 2 is how to make things worse. So your characters are having a bad day. That usually happens in novels. You have to have some sort of conflict before you can have a resolution. But if your character's having a bad day, the easiest thing to do is to make the day better. You are the author. You can fix it with a few words. If your characters broke up, you can say, oh, well, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. And oh, poof, they're back together. But that is no fun. And it would be the rational, logical thing to do. And as much as I'm fond of rationality, people are not rational. They're often emotional. But you can also take that emotion and add just a whole lot more to it. So your characters broke up. All right, let's give one character, let's have their car totaled, and let's kill the other's goldfish, and let's see what happens next. I'm not just gonna make it easy for them, because that would be boring and predictable. Let's make it worse. And once you've made it worse, take it to the next level. How are your characters going to react to this trauma? Do they get back together? Is this a let's get back together, or I need to find someone else to support me or to help me out, or I'm going to just move on and be a strong person on my own? The more you can sort of make things just a bit worse for your character, the more paths you have to follow, the more things you have to explore before you can reach your resolution. And that gives you a lot more in the way of plot and a lot less in the way of predictability. Step 3 is to look at the first rule of improv. In theater, improvisation is usually dictated by one rule. Always say yes. Usually yes and. So you can use this with your story. Instead of saying, let's have a situation where one wild character says, oh, let's go steal some gold. And the other character's kind of, well, I'm not really interested and I have to be home in an hour. Say, all right, but I have to be home in an hour, and see what happens then. So this gives you a lot more paths to follow and a lot more things to look at. It also is a little bit improbable, because most people, if they're faced with a weird decision or a weird proposition, they're going to say, I don't think so. Like me, if I'm asked to go out on a Friday night by some friends from school, I'm going to say, I don't think so, because Friday nights are sitting at home with pizza and PJs. But if I were to say, yes, and let's go do this, let's go do that, eventually you'll end up somewhere you would never have expected. Okay, so I'm not going to actually apply this to my real life because I really enjoy my alone time on Friday nights, but within a story, it's a great way to go and end up somewhere you would never have thought would be possible, or to make your story a lot more interesting because your characters are willing to explore, they're willing to participate in events that might be pushing their boundaries, and they're going to develop. Again, this can be taken too far. You can end up in places that you really probably shouldn't have. The stealing of gold can turn into murder, can turn into being a fugitive across borders in international waters. It can end up doing all sorts of weird things that you really don't need for your plot. But you can also add some intrigue. So there's a balance between the two. Okay, now that being said, not all predictability is bad. If you're looking for a nice, cozy story to write where you have a happily ever after, where things work out just as you want, then predictability is okay, and often even better than unpredictability. We want the story to end well. We want to make sure that things are going to turn out okay for the characters. However, we don't necessarily need to see the superhero save the world in the most traditional way. We can have something interesting happening in between, and that's what you're trying to do. You're just trying to create a bit of deviation so that so that the readers are interested and want to keep going and keep reading, and so that your novel isn't just following the necessarily same formula that you see sometimes in stories. So that's all I've got for you. It's not a terribly in-depth video. I just thought it'd be interesting to see what you could do when you are not following formula. Formulaic stories are very frustrating to me. They kind of drive me crazy, and it's why I avoid most movies made nowadays, because I can tell you exactly what one character is going to say from scene to scene, and when that doesn't happen, I'm really excited. In books, I'm even more excited. So that's all I got for you guys. I will see you next week. Bye!